Titterpigs, oh yeah. They're gonna talk about sweet, sweet RPGs. And it's the Titterpigs, the RPG podcast. Am I getting paid for this one?
Hey listeners, welcome back to episode 32 of Titterpigs. God, Scott, it's been what? A month since we've been in the studio?
Yeah, it's been a good month. We've been busy.
My fault. Blame me.
I wouldn't blame you to your face. I heard that, right? But yeah, no, it's been a good month. We've been busy with personal things, and this our wonderful podcast is a labor of love, but unfortunately our love for financial stability and not getting divorced does take precedent.
True story.
Over the podcast. But no, we need to get back into the swing of things the best we can, because, I want to get us nominated for the Ennies next year, and we need to put forth some more episodes here. That way we can be nominated for best YouTube video or whatever fucking whatever,
just what I wanted to win.
Whatever fucking category they decide to call it next year, I don't know. But we'll submit for best digital product and see
fantastic.
That.
We're a shoo-in. We're a shoo-in.
But
first, before we jump in, I do want to apologize to listeners for tardiness on getting episode 32 recorded and out to everybody. Mm-hmm. I've been super duper busy. This one's totally on me. My son moved 500 miles away from home and for a new job after graduating college. Mm-hmm. I've been busy with helping him basically setting up a new home and get him into an apartment up there, getting him moved. So that has taken all of my spare time. Now that he's moved and settled in, mm-hmm. Hey, now we're looking at a government shutdown. And we're both federal employees. So, hey, what the hell? So here we are. We're recording again.
When it rains, it pours.
Yeah. We'll see what happens in another week.
And anyone who's moved knows moving is not easy, and it's
not
always a stressful event. So, but I'm glad
I haven't done it in 19 years, and I just helped my son move, and that was an experience I don't want to do again anytime soon.
So, question: Did he have, like, when you were moving stuff? Because I know I had it when my parents helped me move for the first time. Was there like one box that he said, "Dad, don't open that. I'll take care of that later."
No.
Okay.
No, thankfully, no.
A drawer didn't open up on a dresser, and he's like, "Don't look."
No.
Okay, good.
No, he did pack some of his own boxes and sealed them up. So hey, whatever. He's 21. He's an adult.
Right.
I don't care.
Right. So so we are back in the studio, and after our wonderful introduction here, we have a great interview that we have with Charlie Menzies of Parable Games. So looking forward to everyone listening to that as he talks about his new Kickstarter company. But before we get to that segment, why don't we, just kind of bring everyone up to date? What have we been up to as far as, gaming wise, and kind of tell everyone what's new with us.
Okay, well, I guess I'll take the helm on this one first. So I haven't done a lot of gaming, obviously, over the last month since we last recorded. Mm-hmm. But as of this recording, the last 2 days, since today is the Sunday, it's the 24th of September, in fact. The last 2 days, I have spent online doing Owlbear and Wizard Staff virtual games for the online game convention. And I have had a blast.
Yeah.
I got to play Cthulhu Dark for the first time after all these years. I finally got to play it. One of our friends, Anthony. Yeah. So that was good. He ran a fantastic game. The players were wonderful. And then podcast listener Tristan, friend of ours from Japan, ran a Call of Cthulhu game over 2 sessions. Mm-hmm. So roughly 6.5, almost 7 hours we played. Unfortunately, we didn't get to a truly satisfying conclusion, but we did get to a conclusion. And he ran an all Spanish a Spanish written campaign that he had translated into English because it's not available in English as of right now, and that was La Broma Macabra. The author who wrote that scenario is a gentleman by the name, some listeners may recognize the name, Alex de la Iglesia. He is also the screenwriter for the HBO series 30 Coins. So if you get the chance to play that, Scott, fantastic scenario. There's so many moving pieces, and we all kind of surmised that it would probably take a good 5 or 6 sessions to really fully explore that scenario. It was really good.
It looks fantastic, because I remember it making the rounds initially when it was first presented. And of course, in true gamer style, immediately it's just like, what is this wonderful Call of Cthulhu scenario? This looks great. When are we getting an English translation for it? Which has not happened yet, but that's great that Tristan took the initiative, because as you can tell by Keith's accent, and also mine if I try to do Spanish, we're not that fluent.
No, I don't roll my R's.
No.
I don't profess to speak any Spanish,
right,
other than order beers and probably get my face slapped in a bar. Right. That's about it.
I mean, when we're done with this episode, we're going to go enjoy a few tacos and quesadillas. But what else did you play though? Because that sounds interesting, and you were in good hands with Tristan. I'm sure he's multilingual and wonderful about that. But there was another game you played, right?
Cthulhu Dark.
Okay.
Written by Graham
that's right.
Walmsley.
Mm-hmm.
Butchering that because I don't have it in front of me, but it had been out in kind of like an ashcan version for years, and now it's out. It's been out for a while now in official form.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how simple the mechanics were,
mm-hmm.
and Ant ran a great game, super interesting story.
Mm-hmm.
We were working in a local recreation, like an RV park,
right,
in Wales, I think Southeast Wales, and this mystery kind of evolved that we got sucked into, and we kind of ran out of time because the scenario or the sessions have like 3 to 3.5 hour windows.
Yeah.
Which is a little odd for gaming sessions, which typically run 4.
Right.
In most conventions, whether online or in real space. But we got to a satisfying conclusion that left all the players happy with the way the game ended,
mm-hmm.
and wanting more, wanting to play the game again, whether it's another scenario or kind of what happened with our characters. We kind of did a little epilogue scene where they ended up in life, a year or 2 down the road, but it left us on like a super cliffhanger, and it was fantastic.
Is there a particular mechanic that you could highlight or reference that makes it different than like your standard Call of Cthulhu by Chaosium game?
Sort of. So I don't have a full grasping of the rules, but it's super simple. It uses 3d6. So mm-hmm. Anytime you need to make a roll, you're rolling a d6. Anytime you are invoking your occupation, you don't even have a character sheet in the game, which is great.
Yeah.
I declared my character was a naturalist. That's what brought him to this place. He mm-hmm. was going to be the kind of the nature guide and all of that stuff. So anytime that my naturalist skill, occupation could be a factor, could come into play, I got to roll 2d6.
Okay.
And you take the higher of the 2 dice. You have a third die, which is the basically I think they called it insight die.
Okay.
Insight die, and it's basically the equivalent of like sanity, right? Mm-hmm. So if you roll 6s on your regular dice, you have to make an insight check, and if you roll higher than your current die roll, mm-hmm. it goes up by 1.
Okay.
And then if you ever get to 6, you're done. Your character's out of play. They've gone like bananas, and that's kind of the synopsis of it. I know there's more to it, and I'm not fluid and fluent in the mechanics, but it was super simple. Anthony did a great job explaining it to us, and it was super easy to just go with it.
That's great, because I know, we know there's a lot of people who enjoy playing within the Call of Cthulhu type setting, but not a lot of people like, the basic role-playing mechanics, but it's nice to have a simpler alternative for those who, just don't have the capacity to grasp a simple, game like, basic role-playing. But I'm not here to talk down to people.
Did you do anything at Owlbear?
I did not. No, I was busy this weekend. I have been, work has picked up for me, and also we had some family stuff to attend to, so I did not get a chance to do that this weekend. But I also had commitment to a couple games that I've been playing in, and so I'll touch on that. So continuing on, for those, I know I've referenced this in other episodes, but still continuing on with the Hyperborea campaign that I'm playing, that's run by Andy Markham and a load of fantastic and wonderful guys. We are well over year 3 within this game, and we are playing one of the newer adventure modules that came out after the new edition of Hyperborea came out. And what can I say? It's still the fact that the same group of people have been playing in the same game for over 3 years is a testament to them being wonderful guys, but also Andy being a top-notch, fantastic game master. There's no right. I mean, pending any sort of health issue, I have no intention of leaving that game. So I've been enjoying that. And then I did the third session of a game that I joined in from that's being run by Patrick Mullen, one of our patrons. I'm joining in on his GURPS campaign. How's that going? That's running. It's good. The world that Pat has made is absolutely fantastic. It's without going into too much detail. It's I would describe it as kind of like an Age of Sail Renaissance fantasy type setting. Magic has left the world, but it's slowly returning. But there's still the aesthetics of the realized analogs of the countries that existed during that time, and I'm enjoying it. I mean, the GURPS. I'm new to GURPS. I've read the books, but I've never really played in it. And of course, people who know the hobby know GURPS is kind of one of those where people either love it or they hate it. And true story. But I kind of feel like that maybe the mechanic itself is easy. Character creation, I think, is where a lot of people might fall to the wayside, because it requires a certain amount of attention and dedication. But once you get through that, it's like any other role playing game. You just you have your character sheet, and you essentially utilize the skills that you've accrued in character creation within the world. But it's only the third session, and what's interesting is we're playing 2 characters too, because there's one character that's on one side of this new world and another character in another location. So you're switching back and forth. So, but so far it's been going good. I've really been enjoying it and looking forward to continuing on with that. And then aside from that, there's something that both of us have been continuing on with game-wise, with your small amount of availability, but you've been able to continue on with our game of Pendragon, which we've been playing. Yeah, I stand corrected. Yeah. That was the other game I've been playing over the last month. Right, so. But I'm running the game. You're one of the characters within it. And I think we're having a good time with it. We are still, I think we're kind of playing it more in tutorial mode, so to speak, because we're still trying to come to grasp with some of the rules, wouldn't you say? Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I have a good firm grasp of the rules, for the most part. Yeah. And I think you're about there, too. Yeah. But I think, narratively speaking, like when we go from narrative and transition into combat. Yeah. It's so much, the combat in Pendragon is so different than your typical role-playing game. Right. That for all of us who are that are so used to a fantasy game, because let's face it, Pendragon is fantasy. Yeah. Having a certain type of flow, right, to the combat and to the way we operate it and think through things, that you literally have to turn off your brain and reset it and then turn it back on after the reset and then go into it. Like movement, unless you're charging in a battle, movement doesn't happen until the end of the combat round. Yeah. And people can't some of the players have a hard time. And it's not just our group, it's other groups too, because I see it on, the socials, right? It's a concept that's hard for people to grasp, that, well, why can't I move and attack? Well, you have to position yourself. 6 seconds is, in terms of all fantasy games, right? 3 to 6 seconds is not a long time, but it is a long time when the adrenaline's pumping and all of that. Right. But
there are things happening and swirling around you, and things have to happen in phases in an orderly way. That's how the game functions, and
yeah,
we're all coming to grips with it.
We are, we're not really losing the aesthetic.
No,
I mean the game's
not at all.
The game's not grinding to a halt, but it's still kind of it's a learning process because, like you said, it's you want to do it this way, but then you're like, well, you need to be aware of the rules more so than you would in a different game, and that's nothing against Pendragon. That's just how it is, and you have to again, as you mentioned, turn your brain off and relearn a couple things in order to play out the game as it's suggested. And so, but outside of that, it's enjoyable. The big part of it is I know you're well versed in Pendragon, and likewise the history surrounding that. But it's also great having a lot of people from the UK who are aware of it, and they've been the ones that have been adding a lot of flavor to the game and filling in some of the gaps that I'm not aware of within both locally. And also just within the Arthurian mythos in regards to Pendragon, but also I'm from the U.S. I'm not going to. I could sit down and read the many books on the Arthurian legends to fill it in, but this is still a starter set. It's not designed to do that. So there's a couple things where you're like, I need something here to make this a little bit more interesting. And you and Roy and Roz and Pookie have all been filling that in as players, which has been fantastic.
Roy's been doing the lion's share of that.
Yeah.
Roy and Neve
have
picked up the lion's share of, because they're in the UK. I mean, Pookie is too, but those two have really added that color.
Yeah.
Where I'm well versed with the game itself, they are both very well versed in the local lore, and where you and I are not, because we're not. We live in the U.S. and always have. So, but they add context that we can't, which is fantastic. Which just makes the game that much better for us, for all of us.
But it's doing the job as every good starter set should. It makes me look forward to and want to get the core rule set as soon as it comes out. So,
oh yeah, absolutely, mission accomplished.
So that aside, let's see here. Anything else?
Have you gotten anything new in the mail? What have you gotten?
Let's see.
I know you've gotten some stuff this month.
I've gotten a few things.
You're a book whore.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done very many unboxings because I've been kind of doing some little one-on-one interviews on the channel, which has been fun. But I do have boxes that have been stacking up. But as of recently, I did receive my Brancalonia Kickstarter fulfillment, which is another addition to the Brancalonia game. And for those who aren't aware what Brancalonia is, it is what they call a spaghetti fantasy, whereas you're playing a group of knaves set within a fantasy Renaissance Italy. It is for 5th edition, but it provides so much flavor and modifications to the 5th edition rule set. It's like its own game.
That's why I love its tone and its theme. I have yet to play it, but it would bring me back to playing 5th edition D&D in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah, and it's a mixture of this wonderful world, but also a good sense of humor because this campaign that's designed for Brancalonia is called the Empire Whacks Back. So there's a lot of these tongue-in-cheek Star Wars reference jokes that are in there, and it's so wonderful to discover these little Easter eggs and jokes as you're going through the book. But it's a fantastic setting, and it's one of those where if we get a moment, like when we're done with Pendragon or something, would like to at least do a one shot of it to experience it at the table, because I haven't gotten to the table yet.
No, that's fair. I got a more important question for you though, regarding things you've gotten.
Yep.
So like me, did you back the DCC 100, the Music of the Spheres is Chaos?
I did, but I haven't opened it yet. I'm saving that for an unboxing video, but I take it you have.
Okay. I have.
Yeah.
It's bananas.
Okay.
Now, it's not as big as like the Dying Earth Kickstarter or some of the other ones they've done where you get like 2 box sets and all of that and supplemental packs. But the box set is really nice, and the scenario itself, I've got it right here in front of me, it's just over 100 pages, and it is gorgeous. I mean, it just fits the bill for right in line with the other stuff for DCC. It's beautiful. The map or the board, it is a chunky fourfold or multifold in 4-quadrant.
Right.
You have to assemble it yourself, rotating circles, dungeon. I mean, it's crazy. And then you get the accessories pack, which is a blank version of that map.
Oh, shit.
That dry erase, so you can make your own map and assemble it and then make, and use it. And it's got some other stuff in it. I think they're gazetteer, and I haven't even opened that. Mm-hmm. And you get a character folio. I mean, it's a nice package, and I think it was only like $65 or whatever.
It wasn't a lot, which was a bit shocking. I don't recall what I backed it at, but
I think when we backed it, I think it was the cost of the retail of the box set, which is $64.99, $65. Because we were Kickstarter backers, the create your own game board was was a stretch goal that was added in, and the character folios were added in, and the gazetteer and all this other stuff was added in. So those are all like perks that are tossed in. But that accessories pack is like a $20 pack, and then the folios pack is like a $10 pack or whatever. So
I know it's been arriving. It arrived to quite a few people in the UK first before it hit us. It's like it's making its way from the UK over the East Coast and hitting the West Coast.
Those dirty bastards.
And but as you said, and from the sound of it, probably the reason why we haven't heard a lot of news about it is it's a lot to digest. It's going to take some people some time to get through it, to kind of people who do normal reviews. Will take a bit of time to get through it all, but it sounds.
I've got to get through some other books before I get to it, but it's working its way to the top of my pile, even though my backlog is crazy right now. What else have you gotten? Anything cool?
What I did recently receive was something that I forgot that I backed, but it was a pleasant surprise. Was another addition to James Holloway. He does the Monster Man podcast. He was on us during our little roundtable session with Andy and Pookie, I believe. But yeah, he puts out these wonderful little zines. He's done the Pamphlet of Pantheons, which allows you to create your own pantheon within your game. He's done some wonderful adventures, the Magonium Mind Murders, and then he recently came out a Guide to Grunts. Which is another zine in the vein of the Pamphlet of Pantheons, which it's inspiration for creating fantasy armor or fantasy armies and soldiers. So it's a little zine, but it's just these tables and information, and it's just enough, like the Pantheons one, that gives you enough to create these realized armies and grunts, so to speak, without having to waste a bunch of time going into the details of it. Because I mean, let's be honest, if you're making some of these things, they're going to die. So you don't need to waste a lot of time with too many details, but it's enough to give a lot of flavor to it. And it's definitely James does a great job on it, especially with his background. And looking forward to reading it. It just arrived the other day. It was one of those where I think it started hitting people earlier and I forgot about it, and then it kind of rang a bell in me. And in typical fashion, I was about ready to go, where's mine? But then before I do, I've got to go check the backer kit, because I'm notorious for, when you get the wonderful email saying, hey, it's time to reply to your backer kit to either pay for shipping or whatever the case may be.
Right.
I forget. And then I'm the asshole who starts contacting them. I haven't received mine yet. And then I get the nice little email going, well, Scott, you haven't done anything.
You haven't put your address in.
You
haven't
haven't
paid for shipping.
Dumbass. And like, oh, yeah. But no, that's it. There might have been a few tidbits or whatever that arrived that I forgot about, but those were the main ones that arrived recently.
Nice.
Anything else on your end?
Aside from the DCC, I got two other books in this past week that I'm kind of interested in, and one I'm really excited about. One was kind of an interest. I'm still participating occasionally in the RPG Geek RPG Chains of Generosity, the Pay It Forward community there. Mm-hmm. And as part of that, I got two books in the mail that finally arrived after like 3 weeks or some shit like that. But they finally made it here. And the first one was Brinkwood, The Blood of Tyrants. And I don't know anything about it, but it's a beautiful little digest-sized hardcover with semi-gloss pages, black and white interior. Mm-hmm. And all I knew was Forged in the Dark, and it's got vampires. So you're trying to fight vampires that are oppressing the world. Okay. So, it's interesting. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I have no idea what it entails, but the gentleman, I say gentleman, the person, because I don't know for sure, that was offering a list of possible choices to the whoever got selected. I happened to get selected. I picked that.
Okay.
And Moonlight on Roseville Beach.
Yes.
By Our Rook Studios. So I've read and reviewed the quick start, which I found to be wonderful.
Yeah.
And I have the PDF of the full book. Now I have the full book in physical print. In physical form.
Any winner, right?
Yes.
Yes. So
my only gripe, looking at the physical book thus far, I've read like 2/3 of it in PDF.
Right.
And you can't tell in a PDF that the print is absolutely fucking tiny. There's a lot of white space, and I think the print could have been enlarged across the board, even if it made it. Now, Brinkwood is a little bit bigger.
Yes.
It's like the size of Liminal, right?
Right.
We all know Liminal from Paul Mitchner. Now, listeners can't see this, but Scott can. There's Moonlight.
Oh my! So yes,
it is much smaller. This is not digest size. This is smaller. This is like the pulps. And I think it's thematic for this reason, because there's a lot of pulpy art in it. I think it's the size of like dime store pulps from the 30s and 40s. And while I think thematically it's great and the art is fantastic, the font size could have been enlarged and pages, this could have been extended and
to compensate for the aesthetic.
And eat up some of that white space and only have to use a smaller font size on lesser number of pages.
Yeah.
And in fewer instances. I know they're going through a Kickstarter right now, or just did, to do a reprint.
Okay.
Or maybe it's Indiegogo or BackerKit or whatever the hell they're doing. But to do a reprint in offset printing, maybe hardcover. So I wish them all the success. Yeah. I think the game is really, really cool. If you're good with the theme.
Right.
Some players will, some won't. But for those that don't know, I'm going to just read you what the cover says.
Okay.
It says a queer game of disco and cosmic horror, Moonlight on Roseville Beach. It's hard to enjoy your gaycation when there's a mystery to solve.
I mean,
that is how it is billed on the cover, just like a dime store pulp.
I mean, again, fine with that. I mean, I know you are, I know I am, and there's most people that we know are, but yeah, some people will take whatever with it, but we don't bother, with.
I think everybody should read at least the quick start.
Yeah,
I think it has so much to offer in like story forward thinking and narrative fiction that it is just wonderful. I
mean, well, that's a testament to certain games, just because you're not okay with the content, whatever it may be, doesn't mean that you can't get something from it. Whether it be learning something new about the game structure, the rules, maybe something within the setting or something. But hey, don't lock yourself away just because the content of something makes you feel whatever. Again, I'm not here to preach or point fingers, but there's whatever the game may be. There's always something you can get from it.
Correct.
For the most part. I know there's probably going to be a couple people out going, well, what about this particular game? We all know that game, that particular game is shit. There's nothing to gain from it, so there's no point in bringing that up. I'm talking about everything else in general.
Correct.
But
other than those two and the DCC 100, that's all I've gotten over the last month. Ish. I haven't gotten a lot, so.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like we've kind of gotten up to speed. That we've kind of told everyone what we've been up to, kind of what life gets in the way as it does, and it will continue to do so. But it's not stopping us. But we have other things that we want to get to. We've got this wonderful interview with Charlie Menzies. Again, I hope
let's get on to that. Let's get Charlie in here and let's get that interview front and center for listeners.
Yep. Let's do it.
All right, listeners, welcome to our main segment for tonight's episode. With us in the studio is Charlie. Okay, Charlie, I'm going to butcher this. Menzies. Did I get it?
Menzies, yeah. Yes. I think actually we might discuss this last time. So it's Menzies is the anglicised way of pronouncing it. Menges is the Scottish way of pronouncing it, and you can already hear my accent coming on the Scottish way of doing it. But it's honestly Menzies. Menzies totally fine.
Menzies, okay. Well, I apologize, but welcome back to Titterpigs. We're glad to have you back. For those that may remember, Charlie was with us, a bazillion episodes ago. He and his brother are the creators of the Shiver role-playing game and its subsequent additional products in that product line. So, again, welcome back.
Thank you. Yes. Thanks for having me back. Yeah, no, very excited to be here.
First off, though, before we get into anything, is I just want to congratulate you and everyone at Parable Games that you're any nomination for the Shiver cover. Know that granted, you unfortunately did not win the gold or the silver, but we did vote for you.
We did.
Yes. And as they say, it's not necessarily the winners. It's more being nominated that matters the most. But I do tell those people who say that, it's like, well, you've never hold a nice heavy metal around your neck, so shut up. I'm going to win next time.
Yeah, it was a real honor to be nominated because it was for Shiver Gothic, the Citrus Fire Home one, because it was for the cover and for the setting. So we got nominated for two, and we were so shocked and over the moon. So yes, but next year we'll keep throwing stuff towards the Ennies. But yes, lovely to be nominated.
Oh, excellent. So, and also, as I mentioned just a minute ago, you are one of, I would say two or more, but anyways, you are one of those who are part of Parable Games, the company that publishes Shiver, and another game that is going to be coming up soon. So, Charlie, why don't you tell us a little bit about Parable Games, and after that, we'd like to hear what this Don't Play This game is all about.
Fantastic. Yeah. So Parable Games. So me and my brother Barney are the directors of Parable Games. In terms of kind of how it was founded, we found it together through the process of making Shiver. So the kind of like our first kind of big game together. And that was very much, I got into RPGs at university, and I was in kind of like doing work in London. I'd basically homebrewed a game to like keep all my screenwriter friends together and play horror movies on the tabletop. And then when Barney saw my notebook one Christmas, said, when are we going to make it? Let's give it a whirl. And then from there, through developing the game and then like play testing and doing more stuff in it, becoming more and more like a real business, eventually we kind of formulated that into Parable Games, realizing it was something that we both wanted to do long term and kind of keep publishing games. So that's how Parable was kind of formed, and we are very much sticking with that spooky horror kind of theme, I think, with our games for now, as is very much our next and new game that's coming up for Don't Play This Game very much falls into that category.
So give us the elevator pitch. Give our listeners that pitch for the new game, because I think it's intriguing, and you have a Kickstarter that's launching, right?
We do. So in October 3rd, the Kickstarter for Don't Play This Game is going to launch. And you're triggering the elevator pitch brains, bringing me back to my film day. So it's like very much, you've got 60 seconds. 60 seconds. You're in there with an exec right now. Go. Okay, so Don't Play This Game, but obviously please do, is a found footage solo horror RPG focusing on making your very own cursed artifact and playing a character that allows you to play your very own found footage movie. So one of our kind of playtesters described it as playing Pokemon Go, but you're hunting the Blair Witch. If I had to deliver it in one line pitch, that would be it. So the idea is that if you'd ever received a chain email or a chain letter that was pass this on in 7 days or something bad is going to happen to you. And I was reminiscing with friends about this from back in our school days. And I had an idea of that. What if there was an entity, something evil that basically survived and fed off of playing a game where it passed on like a chain letter? So in Don't Play This Game, you are playing a character that is being harassed by this evil entity that's making you play this game, and by playing it, it's making you record and write things down, and that can be writing, it can be taking photos, recording audio, and at the end of it, your character can live, your character can die, but ultimately your record will always be passed on, like that chain email, like that chain letter, in this case a chain game, where I could say, here you go, I have played this game, Scott and Keith, you are now cursed, and then you could take that core rulebook and then create your own character, your own story, your own sequel, and create a spider web of spooky stories. So the idea is that it's a kind of cursed solo RPG that through solo play is encouraging multiplayer collaboration and creativity to create a spooky network of stories through solo gameplay.
Very interesting. I mean, that's a nice twist on solo gaming, because as Keith and I were talking a little bit earlier, there is a bit of a rage surrounding solo games now. It seems like there's a lot of focus within the indie world, but even some of the bigger names are coming out with solo versions to play their RPGs. I mean, the Star Trek is widely popular right now with their current offering of playing the Star Trek RPG solo. And so, this is different, as you said. So what type of mechanics does it use? Does it use the mechanics that the people who are familiar with Shiver would be utilizing, or does it use a different form when playing the game?
Completely different from Shiver. Okay. So the kind of symbolic dice are gone here, and it has kind of elements of a roll and write. So you're kind of like looking at prompts, or in our case we call them events, and then at the end you're prompted to roll or do something that will determine what event you're going to next. However, like kind of where we start to dive. So in that case, like kind of creating this journal, this record, like you do with a lot of solo RPGs, and tracking your character on a separate character sheet that we call an anchor, is definitely like a big similarity with other solo RPGs. But from there, we start to kind of divert. So like the way we do events is very different. So rather than kind of having a singular prompt that you're reading and reacting to, writing and making something, then moving on, I really wanted to replicate the idea of playing escalating tension and like a horror scene or a horror event that you see kind of in these movies that we're trying to replicate. So our events are actually split into 3 individual prompts that escalate and interact with one another. So you kind of have if you're playing for an event, it's quite a meaty experience. You're kind of reacting to 3 different things. Another point, like when you're reacting to these events as well, when you're making a record, where we kind of diverge, is that for a lot of solo RPGs, journaling and writing is kind of the foundation block of how you play the games, with some rolling and obviously tracking your character as well. With us, in terms of what we're kind of wanting the player to create, your record kind of goes beyond a journal, because sometimes the book will encourage you to put the game down, go outside, find an abandoned building, take a photo of it, paste that in your record. Record an audio log of the weird noise that's keeping you up at night outside. You're seeing a face in the window every night that's keeping you awake. Draw it down on a scrap bit of paper and paste that in. So rather than kind of like this more neat and orderly journal that you would normally get from a lot of solo games, you kind of get this bulging scrapbook of terror, which you can then pass on to somebody and build on that. So we're really encouraging this kind of multimedia approach in terms of encouraging people to be creative, and really kind of we make suggestions, and obviously what you have available to you to kind of create stuff is fully up to you. If we say take a photo, you don't have to take a photo. You can go and draw it. You can, and we talk about that in the book a bit more. But from our burgeoning Discord community, we're already seeing this with the demo. So we have someone who has basically been playing through the kind of free demo that we've put out there. And they've done entirely audio logs. So they've done like a little audio drama, and then doing a slideshow of photos that they've taken, and then uploading it unlisted to YouTube, and releasing that into the community for people to listen to in an episodic format. We've got people drawing their entity. Someone's resurrected a blog website, which is all kind of black background, green text, like very old, like teletext style, like kind of blog. That kind of feels like you've stumbled across something from like, kind of the really early dawn of the internet, like reading something that you really shouldn't be. It's fascinating seeing, it's fascinating seeing all this come out of the community with literally a free demo that has 10 events in it that you play in a linear fashion. And it's already starting to manifest into the kind of things that I was really hoping to see. So it's very, very exciting.
So I've got a question. So kind of piggybacking off of this, what you're finding happening with just with the demo game in your Discord community, right? The blog with the old green screen text and audio clips. Are you guys through your website, because I believe the game itself has its own like .me or .com website, right? Mm-hmm. Are you guys going to allow players to submit like, hey, here's my blog of my journal, or here's the audio files that I've arranged or put together in a Spotify playlist or whatever, and make those, if players wanted to make things like that available, could they do it through you guys?
Yeah, so at the minute it's something we're housing on the Discord, but it's definitely something that we've been discussing kind of in-house as a company. Okay. Because for me, it's obviously creating an infrastructure like that where someone can kind of sign in and have an account and share is quite a big infrastructure to kind of build for a company that's as small as ours. But it's something I really, really want to do. So it's very much going to be on the upper end of our stretch goals. We've got a position where we think we're kind of crunching the numbers and having a think about it of if we reach a certain funding goal, that's something I would like to do, is basically create a digital network that goes beyond Discord, because Discord I think works really great and it has a lot of community tools, but I know exactly what you mean of where you can have an account page where you're uploading things, and then like I think I've been calling them internally in my head tethers. So like if someone is then saying they've read your thing and they're saying, I'm going to make something inspired from this, then that creates a tether. So that's what I want to try and figure out how we can do, is almost that conspiracy board of red string of interconnected stories of how can we do that digitally, because then I could upload a record, say, and then come back to it a year later and see there are 10 tethers. Maybe there's a tether that goes 5 in a chain. Maybe there's one that goes 10, 12, 20, 30 in a chain. And people have taken the one piece of narrative that I've created through my solo experience and created an entire world and an entire narrative kind of together, and kind of revisiting that. So I'm very interested in seeing that. And we're seeing that in the Discord, but I know exactly what you mean in terms of providing a ecosystem for that to happen more clearly. Is something we've definitely been talking about. It's just whether that will be kind of in the remit of the funding goal for us to do, because it's quite a big undertaking, but one that we're definitely very interested in doing if the community wants us to.
I'm sure they will, but I mean, very much an interactive site. It's not unlike something like how SCP, tended to branch out and become something more than what it is. And I can already see a landing page, not unlike, the really cheesy conspiracy or horror websites you see in the movies or on a show. You're like, they didn't make that. That looks ridiculous, but it's always, the truth is out there and fairly poorly produced, but a wonderful repository, because that will give it, more momentum in its own life in the long term. So I hope, it does eventually get to that, because that will make it bigger than what it, where it starts from.
Okay. So I want to ask, just because I'm sure listeners would be curious. So with journaling games, solo games, on the rise, their popularity is increasing, was kind of on the rise before the pandemic, most definitely through the pandemic. Its meteoric rise hasn't stopped. With your game, first off, what was the nexus of the game? How did it come to be?
So I think it's kind of after kind of going through free. So we're kind of 3 releases deep now into Shiver. So double features being finished up now, will release early next year. Okay, is the plan. Or kind of early second quarter of next year. In this kind of interim kind of phase, I'd been kind of thinking a lot about our next project, and we launched a Patreon for Shiver where I've been experimenting on the top tier, making small press content, just doing horror content, trying new design ideas and things, and really kind of branching out. And one of the things is during the pandemic and kind of afterwards, I've been playing solo games and playing around with them, and me and my brother also rediscovered a load of fighting fantasy books. that were a big part of our childhood. And there's been some great re-releases of them. I had one on here, which is like the House of Hell one they re-released, which is like one of the few horror ones that they did. So I've got that to play through again. And it was, I was very much kind of playing through a lot of these solo games, and a thought came to me alongside this kind of like thinking about chain letters and chain emails, which I wanted to do something with, but I wasn't sure. But when I was playing the solo games, I was very much enjoying them. However, like I noticed, like the general element of it is like, bar your solo Star Trek and your adventure games, like I think there's definitely like these conversions for kind of larger tabletop RPGs kind of happening now. Mm-hmm. But before that, there is an element of coziness. I would say to most kind of solo RPGs, like there's something quite comforting and quite wholesome at the core. I think of a lot of the solo games that are out there, like a big chunk of the market, I would say, and they were really lovely, and they really bring me a lot of joy. But I couldn't help with my terrible horror screenwriter's brain thinking, I want to play a solo RPG that scares me shitless. That's what I wanted, and I couldn't find it. I wasn't finding something that was like sitting down and reading a horror book like late at night that's got you gripped but is way too scary and you know you're not going to sleep, or stumbling down like a YouTube rabbit hole where you start you see these weird clips and they chain off one another. And it was kind of like, that is a solo experience in itself. It's kind of like these interconnected rabbit holes that we find in kind of media and stuff that we like. And that combined with thinking about the chain letter and the chain email idea really got me thinking about found footage horror in terms of like a subgenre that we've not really explored through Shiver. It's relatively, I hadn't seen like many like games like kind of touch upon it kind of yet, and it's one that I grew up with that I really love, and actually has quite typically, kind of when you think about them structurally, has a very singular kind of solo aesthetic in the sense that generally you're sticking with one perspective, one camera, generally, not always the case, but for the entire film. And sometimes these can really be the cameraman or woman or person is the character like that you're engaging with. They're your kind of empathic link into the narrative. So I was thinking to myself, what if you made a found footage solo game where you're the character, you're that person behind the camera, but in this case it doesn't have to be a camera, it can be pen and paper, it can be photos, it can be video, it can be audio, but really kind of puts you in that sole creative perspective of kind of sharing what's happening to you. And it's also been inspired by various other like YouTube things. Like I grew up on like the whole Marble Hornets craze that happened with around the whole Slenderman stuff, as well as like creepypastas, which all have that singular narrative voice where it is always happening to pretty much one person, and it's told from that first person thing. So I started noticing this pattern kind of everywhere, and I was like, this feels perfect for solo. Because I think it's something that may be quite tricky, like to do with more players, I think, in terms of kind of creeping them out. If we were to do it from the Shiver approach, I think that actually might be quite tricky to establish the mood, the setting and tone compared to kind of what a solo game can be possible with. Right. I think with kind of putting the control in the player's hands of how spooked out can they make themselves, challenging them a little bit almost to scare themselves.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's the big difference between the Blair Witch Project and the Blair Witch Project 2. So yeah. So I've got a question regarding the game itself. So as you're describing this, and a lot of these things that, especially in a more film sense, there's, you brought it up earlier, there's a sense of urgency to this. I mean, usually a clock is ticking in order for either to avoid or stop or confront whatever this thing is that is intruding in your life. Does that play in the game? I mean, it's if someone's sitting down to do this journal, is part of the game mechanics something like you have 3 or 4 days to complete this and move it on to something else, or something bad might happen. So is there some sort of ticking clock that's going to urge them to play through this within a certain amount of time? Because we're all gamers, especially with solo games. A lot of times you're gonna earmark the fighting fantasy book and get back to it a week later or something like that. Whereas or a month, yeah. Whereas here, you don't really want to. I would imagine you don't want to let them sit. You want them to live in the moment. So.
Yeah. We very much gone with and this is kind of in the demo as well, of the if you see an event appear in the book, you have 7 days to respond to it and do something. Classic, going for the ring, very classic. I think with it, of giving kind of a reference point. I think that everyone understands that level of urgency of that. But the kind of twist that we put on it is that if you don't kind of respond to it in 7 days, the entity doesn't kill you, but it basically its threat is slightly different. It's like, if you don't play with me, I'll erode everything in your life around you. So in the way that we've actually written the rules in the demo, and it will be in the kind of main book as well, it's a first person address. So we explain the rules from the perspective of a character who may or may not have survived this curse, this entity.
I love the way the demo's presented. I love it.
Thank you.
The first opening pages I think is fantastic, and it's no shit. It's creepy as fuck.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, no, it was like one of those things. It was a real big challenge, and it was Barney's idea. This one, so full credit to him. It was his idea, and then I had to implement it, which was terrifying. Of that, and originally, I wrote the demo as a kind of vertical slice to kind of show people what the game was, and it was very much explaining the rules in that neutral tone of voice, so there can be no confusion and making sure everything's kind of clear. However, when we were kind of going back, it was like it just wasn't hitting quite right, and we kind of realized that once you get past the safety tools, which we moved to the front of the demo, we want people to be they're in the world of the game from that point, and immersion shouldn't be broken. So the narrative voice that is kind of at the forefront of the game is this person who has potentially survived and is trying to help you think, and giving you hints and tips and telling you how to play the game so you don't make the same mistakes that they did, because they talk about not playing the game in 7 days, and all of a sudden their dog dies. Like things start to go wrong for them. So that's the kind of ticking clock that's in there. And then you get the secondary narrator as well, which is the entity, which likes to interrupt in the book and occasionally put its oar in as well.
Nice.
The juxtaposition of the two voices was so fun to read. As three-way, as a gamer, as a reviewer, and as an editor, it was just fun to read and experience that juxtaposition of the narrator's voice, then the entity's voice coming through and saying, "Don't ignore me. If you don't do this in 7 days, something bad's going to happen." It was nice. It was tonally. It was a change of pace that I really liked, and I was quite impressed for a demo. I mean, it was really cool.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, it's kind of like setting that tone and setting that pace has been something that's been very important with this as kind of a project. I mean, with the demo, it works very differently compared to the main book in terms of pace, because it's very much designs that 10 event to give you the feeling of like what a random experience through the main book could be. Basically, it's like that could be like your full run, as it were. But with the book, obviously, there'll be more events, there'll be more variety. There's a rolling element at the end of the events that you don't get in the demo, where you don't know exactly where you're going to be going. So there is an element of randomness. That means each experience and battle against the entity isn't going to be the same. Like, you can't really have the same experience twice. Mm-hmm. So it has a huge amount of kind of replay value. But it's also behind the scenes, which the players kind of won't really be seeing, is the way the events are designed and structured is very much leaning from my screenwriting background. Of one of the things I kind of find with solo RPGs that sometimes I've struggled with in the past is that pacing kind of goes all over the place because of like the randomness. Sometimes you land on things and you kind of be like, I'm having a bit of a nice chill doldrums moment here, but not much is happening. A lot of McClan maintenance stuff is happening. But with this, the way I have done it is by doing a lot of maths and changing dice sizes at the end of things behind the scenes. I've created what I call like structural bands of events. So you basically have like your inciting incident, you have your like rising tension and spookiness, you have your first confrontations, you have your like gathering evidence and finding help kind of section. And because of the Mastodon, you may do like, 2 or 3 in one section, then 1 or 2 in another section. But it is designed that you're never sitting in one band for too long. So then when you actually start moving through, you really feel the pace of being in your own found footage horror movie, because you're never resting in a narrative beat for too long that isn't appropriate for where the story should be. So that's kind of what we've done behind the scenes that the player doesn't see, but hopefully they will feel when they play through the whole game.
I do have a question though about this, because something such as this could be very intense, and I haven't seen what you mentioned that is currently existing on the Discord, but I would imagine they could run the gambit. And as involved as whoever's playing it wants to make it, at the end of the day, the replayability of it, especially with something that could be a personally intense situation, and whatnot, or even someone experiencing what other people have presented. A classic example being Alice is Missing, which is a very focused, intense game. And yet, when it was all said and done, even though there's multiple endings to that particular game that you could experience, I didn't want to experience it again. It was fine the first time, because it was an intense experience. And so, are there various ways for them to gauge the experience, make it? I mean, you kind of touched on it a lot, but as intense or as they want to make it within the game. I know you mentioned, of course, there's safety tools in here because it's a horror game, and I saw them. They're presented in front of the Quick Start PDF. Safety tools aside, it's just what is it that's going to want to bring me back to play it again? If what I go through is either very intense or even satisfying, because as a solo game, there's always different paths. Even old books, even Fighting Fantasy, you had a couple different endings, even though the plot structure was pretty solid. You were just kind of traveling through it. But what is it that's going to bring me or another player back to want to re-experience it again?
So I think this is where the unique community element really comes to the fore. Okay. So it's like watching a found footage horror movie. I feel like from the playthroughs I've done testing, they are intense. They do leave you a bit breathless. It reminds the thing I was aiming for is the first time I watched Wreck, for example, if you've kind of seen that, and the ending dragged off into the darkness, credits roll, and you kind of have that, oh man, that was a lot. And you get that with a lot of found footage movies. And so that's kind of intended that we kind of want to have that. But I think what you get with passing that record on, kind of writing that epilogue, that post-credit scene, as it were, of where the record ends up and who it ends up with. You can fully, if you're really into it and you want to kind of, continue playing around in that world, you can create another character and pass it on to a character internally and do it that way. But I think one of the multiplayer elements, I think it is there for me in that sense of I was very aware that I think people would want to take a breath. Kind of after doing a playthrough. And one of the nice things is that taking a breath can be giving it to a friend and talking to them about it and seeing how their experience with the game is going. And then maybe they pass it on to another friend. And by that point, you kind of have a community kind of going. And then once you've kind of had enough distance from the game, maybe it's got to the fourth person, and that person asks, hey, would you be comfortable if I hand this curse back to you? And then all of a sudden, you're then going back through 4 stories. You're having a nice time reading how your friends have built upon what you started, and then reacting, responding, and building in a different way based off of what everyone else has done. And another way to kind of make it more refreshing as well is that we really encourage taking different approaches. So if you did a very journal approach the first time around, maybe your character was a kind of failing horror writer, maybe they were a journalist of some kind, newspaper column editor, and you took a very notebook based approach, totally fine, and that was kind of a really nice experience. You enjoyed that. Next time you could actually challenge yourself to do a different approach entirely. You could use just the voice memo app on your phone, for example. You could do entirely video. You could do drawings and photos only, and then limit yourself to how many words you write for each event. So being I've got 30 words, but I can use an image as well in each one. So you can kind of set these parameters for kind of how you want to build your records, and they can be very reflective of your character. So maybe for the it's a photographer who stumbled across it. And the thing that we really want to encourage with people is that we know there is like a barrier to creativity for a lot of people if they're scared that something that they make is going to be bad or look rough or look a little bit, uneasy around the edges. But with found footage, that's actively encouraged. If anything, that makes it better. It makes it more believable. It makes it more in the world of that. If something's not perfect, if it's smudged, it's creased, it's covered in grime and that analog fuzz, it's going to fit in right here. And you can still tell a fantastic story and create a very satisfying thing within your record. In any way that you kind of wish, and use it to, try illustration, try photography, try acting. Like, if you're recording video and audio, that's another arm of this as well. So I think, that's for me, that's it. That's where the breadth comes in, is that interacting with other players, but then also changing your approaches as well to reflect the characters that you want to play.
I like that, like, as you mentioned, that gives an opportunity for those who may feel that they're not as creative, or can't spell, or have bad grammar. I'm pointing at myself, by the way. But the aspect of it is it's in terms of the game, I'm doing this in the moment. I don't have time to correct myself. I don't have time to be grammatically correct. I am doing something that is affecting me now, and no one concerns themselves about that. Or if you're drawing something down, it's, if it's just a stick figure, you're trying to just, take a document
That's my
of something.
art style.
Yeah.
I got it copyrighted. You
bad
can't
photography.
Use it.
I can imagine, though, and this, but aside from that, I can imagine the hyper creative people are going to be producing some ridiculously marvelous things within this, because it's going to just, it's going to open the floodgates to them. And I would imagine there's already, like you said, there's already people doing stuff on the Discord with just the quick start, and you're going to see and witness some very high quality stuff. I would imagine, just people who are just opening the floodgates of their imagination. This is fantastic. I'm getting more excited as you're describing this, because we are professional podcasters. We spent weeks researching this 5 minutes before we came on, and so it's
So I want to ask, is there any way to take this game, which is written to be a solo game, right? If I wanted to grab Scott and grab you, Charlie, and a couple other folks, is there a way to make this or turn this into a multiplayer game? Is that even possible?
Yeah. So that is something that we're looking at within the kind of main game. And adding in and working on. So very much like with Alice is Missing was actually a big inspiration for this, funnily enough, of kind of having friends sharing a text chain. And basically the idea that I have for it is that I'll be addressing, obviously, the player as this cursed person who's trying to help them, being like, if you bring friends in on this, be aware you are cursing them as well. But you can take them with them. They can contribute. So if you can't react to something at that moment, maybe they can, and keep the entity fed. But once you're all in it, you're in it. Like, you're all cursed. You're all in it together. So kind of really not breaking that theme. But yes, no, because obviously, like with the element of the safety tools and stuff that we're talking about at the top, obviously you're going outside, you're going to abandoned places, you're going places at night, and we always exercise caution. And one of the best ways to kind of be safe with that is doing that in a group, which we're very, very aware of. So it's kind of the kind of core focus is definitely going to be responding to this as a solo player. But we will be working on adding elements in there that allow you to broaden this to a multiplayer experience, and kind of talk about how, like, artifacts kind of created as a group work, and can be included in a text chain. I think is like one of my favorites of this, or an email back and forth between people. Very much in that, very much when I kind of looked over Alice is Missing, that very much twigged something in my brain of actually that's a very good way to engage with the quite digital nature of this, of all the different mediums that you can kind of interact with, or sending voice notes to one another. That's something I do with my friends on the regular. So that is something that could be, somebody reacts to event part 1, somebody reacts to event part 2 with voice note, and then somebody reacts to event part 3 with a voice note. So in terms of that, it's perfect for 3 players in that way, of that each event you can look at tackling a different part, contributing towards it, and then you could even have a shared Google Doc, like where you do this,
or Discord, a private Discord room,
Discord, a channel, like a chat room, anything like that. But yes, no, it is something that we're going to be putting in. Although the game is very much like solo first, with the kind of multiplayer interaction kind of after you kind of have a completed record. But we want to kind of include that multiplayer element as well. Although I think it'll be a very different multiplayer role-playing experience compared to what people may be used to, which would be quite interesting.
I can imagine. And I assume this is definitely one of those games that don't be surprised if people take it and they're going to run with it. So they will make it a multiplayer game without your consent or not. Yeah.
I just like the idea, because you said you kind of hit on it. For me, it was like using Discord, and then it has some inspirations taken from Alice is Missing, which plays wonderfully through Discord messaging. It has like an app feature module for Discord specifically to do that and facilitate it. And it worked out wonderfully. And I can see doing, don't play this game, and then, using just Discord, popping up pictures or short little text snippets, and somebody else glomming onto it and adding to it, and or taking the next piece of the event and running with it. So I see it as a thing.
Finally, a reason for me to turn on alerts on Discord.
I know, right? Because I silence every one of them. Okay, so this is, you said this is going to launch on the 3rd of October. Is that correct?
3rd of October, and we'll be running for an entire month, all through the spooky season. We'll be off on the window over on Kickstarter.
Okay.
So let's talk about the Kickstarter just briefly too. So obviously the book is going to be part of the Kickstarter. But I see that you're mentioning a couple things as far as possible stretch goals or something. And these are inheritance boxes, certain items that you might be presenting. Are any of those that you can refer to now, or did you want to wait for the Discord to drop?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I can talk about this now. So the inheritance boxes. So in terms of the structure of the things that will be available, everything will be available digitally, as we kind of usually do, including our own record book where you can kind of write and put stuff in, offering kind of dice as well as some extra kind of add-ons. When you hit the inheritance boxes, so the inheritance boxes are like mini expansions to the game, but also give you a grouping of like tactile objects and artifacts to interact with, and I would say enrich your experience in game and your immersion. So, for example, one of the inheritance boxes that I can reveal was called the Toy Box, which is all about cursed toys, abandoned factories, and strange toy shops. We have a bucket of dolls' heads that I am currently destroying and making look creepy, because the whole point with the inheritance boxes is that you gain a new set of events that can be kind of played and kind of muxed into the main game itself, but have a more focused theme around kind of the objects that you're finding kind of within those boxes. And these objects can be anything from scraps of paper, news clippings, distressed dolls' heads, like I'm kind of currently making. Even you may find a thumbstick in your inheritance box that has some things that I have potentially placed on there that have some clues or artifacts that you can use. And these are all things that you can obviously still go out and make your own artifacts and make your own things. But we'll be designing these to go along with the events that are kind of in there as things that you can actively react to, paste in your book, take photos of, and interact with. Almost like kind of like if you're going to go away and make your own found footage movie, the inheritance box is giving you the props to do that. And really kind of give it a new life as an experience. And we have 3 of those in total, all with different unique themings and items and artifacts and goodies inside to match as well. I will say as well, we also have an early bird goal that if we fund within 48 hours, we will be releasing what's called a digital inheritance box. So what that will most likely entail is a zip folder from me filled with a lot of horrible things for you to play around with and interact with. It's very much allowing me to lean back into my old film and TV background, because audio and video is very much my jam. So there's going to be some very kind of cursed images, I think, that people are going to receive as part of the digital inheritance box. But that's only refunded in 48 hours. So yes, and everyone who backs the Kickstarter in some way will receive a digital inheritance box for free as part of that.
Fantastic.
We like props.
Oh yeah, we do. We love props.
Yeah, it's like
props make the game that much better.
Yeah, here's this wonderful game. I'm not interested. There's props. Oh, take my money. I don't care what the game is. I just want the props.
All of that sounds great. What is going to be the digital buy-in and then the physical buy-in for just the game itself? Inheritance boxes aside, because obviously those are going to be increased costs.
Yeah,
those will be. Just let me pull that up, because my memory for numbers is absolutely abysmal.
What are you talking about? If you say a number now, no one's going to yell at you later.
It's definitely a thing of just like it's one of those things where I cannot get it wrong.
I know.
Make sure it is 100% correct. Okay.
I heard on Titterpigs it was 20 pounds, and it's 20 pounds 5, and I hate you.
So, to get in on this digitally, where you receive our core rulebook and a record that you can kind of use or print out digitally, that's £15.
Okay.
Is the entry tier for this. To get yourself just the physical book, so the rule book, that's £30 British. Then we have our Curse Collectors, which we've got priced at £59, and this gets you a physical book, a premium physical record for you to write your and kind of scrapbook your kind of cursed record that you make, and also a set of blood splattered dice that may have belonged to the previous owner of said record. So you get yourself a nice dice set to play along with as well. Then at £99 we have the Inheritance, where you get to select one of our 3 main inheritance boxes, and kind of play through those with everything as well that I've kind of mentioned before. Fully Cursed at £175. You get all 3 inheritance boxes. So you get as long as the core game, record, and dice. So if you're kind of looking to play through different themes as well as like kind of do a random playthrough, the level of replayability at that tier, crazy. And also you get a bucket of props. Very interesting, weird cursed little items. Then Uniquely Cursed, we have is an expansion that won't be available for normal retail. It's going to be a little bit more handcrafted by me and Barney, of giving you some unique cursed items that we are going to find, source, and make, and put those in. So if you're looking for an extremely unique experience that will never kind of appear again from us, that is our Uniquely Cursed, and we have a limited amount of those. So we'll be making 10 of those special boxes.
Okay.
But that is at £499, but that includes everything as well underneath it as well as a kind of handmade experience. And our top tier, which we only have 3 of, £799, is send me a picture of you, and me and the artists for Don't Play This Game will incorporate you into a cursed image. Oh, nice. And speaking of art, we've kind of been very happy to announce recently Trevor Henderson has joined the project as an artist, so the creator of Siren Head and many other cursed images, and that is going to be a fundamental part of our stretch goals as well, is bringing on more people from the analog horror art community contributing cursed images to the core rulebook as well. So every time you turn that page, it's going to make you squirm slightly in the best possible way. And that's the structure of the Kickstarter, which I know we've been kind of teasing for our social media, but for those who are kind of fascinated and want to know ahead of time, then yes, that's everything that's going to be on offer.
If you're running low on cursed items, I'd be more than happy to send you my first grade school photo, because there's nothing more cursed than that bowl haircut my parents did for me. So you're welcome to it. It's fantastic.
He tried to pawn it off on me. Don't take it. Don't take it. All right, I am genuinely intrigued. I mean, like I said, for me, the demo, reading the intro to the demo, then reading through the scenes, I find it fascinating. I found it engaging. Even just the instructions for how to play the demo, I found engaging. So if that tone is what is going to be in the core book, I think listeners and game players are in for a treat. Personally,
yes,
I really liked it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a change from, as you mentioned earlier, the more pastoral solo games. I really don't want to do a journaling game in Stardew Valley. I'll just play the game. But if I'm going to take the time, I want something to be interesting and cool. And, this hits all the feels 100%. So I'm definitely looking forward to it too, as will many people once they hear this podcast. So I'm looking forward to this and it coming out as soon as possible. And I'm going to download. I've already downloaded. I'm going to sit down and play with the quick start too. Once I have free time, probably after my kids graduate, but hey, better late than never.
So last question on the Kickstarter is, what is the expected release date of the Kickstarter? So obviously it's going to end in November, and then you're going to have your production finished development and production time, and then when will backers get their products?
So as we're kind of a small company and we're wanting to kind of keep things within kind of like good expectations.
Sure.
We're kind of typically expecting probably about a year kind of post like the kind of ending of the Kickstarter.
Okay.
For us to kind of deliver. However, with this, there is always kind of wiggle room of so we got hit by the shipping crisis kind of when we were doing Gothic, and that slowed things down slightly, but we'd pulled ahead in terms of development, so we came out kind of early on Gothic when delivering that. So there's always some wiggle room, but what we're hoping is to kind of set expectations of year or just over a year, but hopefully we will be delivering faster is the hope, as we are kind of getting a good amount of experience at producing books and games at a kind of a better rate, which is good. So yes, so kind of people set expectations for kind of a year or just over a year, but we will hopefully be delivering earlier than that, or much earlier than that.
Well, Charlie, this is, you've sold us. I mean, that goes without saying, but I mean, and you've obviously, sold us on your previous visit. So, I mean, if you're ever short, you've got two people to buy something. You can just come on and say, hey, I'm selling my old car. It's like, fine, we'll buy it. I guess, we like you, just whatever we can do to support the company. But yeah, so this sounds fantastic. So anything else that you want to touch upon that we may have overlooked, or anything else you want to reference regarding this Don't Play This Game or Parable Games?
Yeah, no, I think the kind of last thing I say is the pastoral element that you mentioned with other solo RPGs. I'd say for anyone out there who's like a solo RPG player at the moment and really likes that pastoral feel and is unsure about something a bit spookier, a bit scarier, I'd say one of the big inspirations for this, and a feeling that I really want to replicate, is that feeling of like going out on your bikes in your early teens and you're tooling around like the abandoned railways, going near the spooky house that's got ghost stories around it. Every town or like kind of childhood has got its local folklore, and I think this game gives you that element that you can kind of recreate that in some way. So it kind of actually has a strangely pastoral element to it. It's just the dark, grimier element of the kind of younger years and exploration that maybe isn't as fondly remembered, but I feel it should be. It has that kind of Stephen King Stand By Me, let's go find a body by the train tracks kind of vibe. Like I think it's like, if that kind of level of pastoralness, that darker shade to it appeals to you, then this definitely could be the game for you as a solo RPG player.
I like that angle.
Yes, I do. And nothing wrong with solo gaming about doing your laundry. That's fine. I appreciate it. I do too. But every once in a while, it's just like, I don't want to do my laundry. I want to go ride my bike down in the tunnels and see what creepy crawlies are down there. So,
true story. Well, Charlie, thank you again for coming into the studio, having a chat with us, telling us about your newest project, reminding listeners of your previous project, Shiver. I guess the last thing is, where can people find you guys? Like the Discord, the website, all the good stuff, all the socials.
So if you search "Don't Play This Game" on Facebook or Instagram, "Don't Play This Game" has its own social media channels, but you can find links for it as well through all of the Shiver RPG channels as well. If you're looking for us on Twitter or X or whatever it may be in the next month or so, if it's still alive, we're at Games Parable. If you're still there, we're looking at Bluesky as well. I think we'll eventually get on there, and some various other places. But we post like regular updates on there as well, across the board. If you are interested in kind of checking out Shiver and some of our kind of other games, you can find us at www.parablegames.co.uk, and we ship throughout the entire US now. That is all sorted, so you can order stuff and it will be shipped from our US warehousing. If you're interested in more monthly spooky stories, we also have Shiver RPG is on Patreon as well, releasing kind of monthly stories for you to play, case files, as well as new small press content from myself and the team as well. And finally, if you want to have a little look at Don't Play This Game, potentially get your hands on the demo, if you go to www.don'tplaythisga then .me. So almost write www and then to write "Don't Play This Game," put a dot between the A and the GA and the ME. You will find our website. But those links are everywhere on our social medias as well. But yes, it was Barney's world-winning idea of making our URL even spookier than it was already, which I loved. So
I think it's great.
Yeah, and we'll have links to all of this in the description, which come to find out through experience that no one looks at. So, but they're still there for your convenience, listeners. So please take a moment and click on those if you don't want to write this down. But everyone does it. So, anyways,
we're just following the cool crowd.
I know, Charlie. Thank you, and much success with this coming Kickstarter, which I'm absolutely sure you will have. But but much success above and beyond, because we want those goddamn stretch goals. So I mean, I want you to reach those stretch goals, is what I meant to say.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for having me again. It's been an absolute blast.
All right.
You're welcome. Take care.
Hey, Titterpigs fam, just a quick reminder, we do have our Patreon going on. It's patreon.com/Titterpigs. You can show your support there. We have 2 tiers for you, a $3 and a $6 tier, so show us some love and be part of our growing community.
And speaking of our growing community, I'd like to give a shout out to our current Patreon members: Dr. Mitch, Jason Sheets, Bud's RPG Review, Dwayne Costa, William Payne, Lupus Malum, Salt Heart, Patrick Mullen, and our newest member, Dragon Girl 74.